Y'all, it is about 6:02, so we will go on and get this thing started. First of all, how's everybody doing? Incredible. So good to see all of your faces. I'm so excited to be a part of this event. And welcome. Thank you for joining us for tonight's panel discussion, hosted in conjunction with Black Alumni Reunion Weekend. Or week, sorry, excuse me. My name is Ruth Huntley. I am a senior from Clanton, Alabama, majoring in global studies in the College of Human Sciences. And this year I have the honor and privilege of serving as president of the Student Government Association. I'm incredibly honored to be serving as the first Black female in this position. So this week is incredibly impactful for me, and I'm super excited to be a part of it. And thank you to Aaron and everybody involved in tonight's event for including me. Tonight's event is the second annual Black Alumni Panel for Students. The idea for this panel came from Regenia Sanders, tonight's moderator. Ms. Sanders recognized a need to connect successful Black alumni with Auburn students, creating opportunities for engagement and support. This program is about celebration, networking, mentorship, guidance, and inspiration. We are honored to have 6 outstanding Auburn University alumni with us tonight. The panelists represent a variety of professions and experiences and are here to share their stories and answer questions. Panelists, we look forward to hearing from you and learning from you. Before we introduce our panelists, there are a few housekeeping details to cover. Thanks to the generous support of Tiger Dining, thank you all so much for this, all students in attendance tonight will receive a Grubhub coupon to use on campus. Students will also be entered for a drawing for a $120 Home Chef gift card. And y'all use Home Chef, and that is an awesome deal, so get excited about that. Students, please submit your Auburn email address in the chat so we can send your coupon and enter you for the drawing, so be sure to include that in the chat. Also, to promote ongoing engagement, we will share the students' names, email addresses, and majors with our panelists following tonight's session. If you prefer that we not include your name on this list, please indicate that in the chat. Finally, so that we can call on those with questions during tonight's discussion, we ask that everyone enter their first and last name into your screen name. To do this, go to the top of your personal video frame, click on the 3 dots, and select Rename. You can edit it from there. So, getting started with tonight's event. Our moderator this evening is Ms. Regenia Sanders. Ms. Sanders completed 2 engineering degrees from Auburn University and resides in Atlanta, Georgia. She is the incoming president of the Auburn University Alumni Board of Directors, the first Black alumni and second woman to serve in this role. So congratulations, Ms. Sanders. Ms. Sanders is a partner at Ernst & Young LLP, where she serves as America's Business Consulting Supply Chain and Operations Practice Leader for the Americas, an over $250 million business comprised of approximately 500 professionals across the US, Canada, Latin America, and Israel. She has more than 20 years of experience delivering supply chain asset assessment and transformational projects, from sourcing and procurement to planning and manufacturing fulfillment for Fortune 500 and private equity portfolio companies. Ms. Sanders is a member of the Samuel Ginn College of Engineering's Alumni Council and was on steering committee for the creation of Auburn's Emerge Leadership Program. She is engaged in efforts with the Office of Inclusion and Diversity and Student Affairs, where she serves as a member of the Student Affairs Development Board. Ms. Sanders has a named study area in the College of Engineering Student Success Center and funds an endowment scholarship for young women majoring in engineering at Auburn. In addition, she was one of the first donors of the new MPHC Legacy Plaza project. Regina is a member of our wonderful sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the George Petrie Society, the Sanford Society, Foy Society, 1856 Society, and a member of the Circle of Excellence Society. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Sanders. If you want to wave for all of us here tonight, thank you. So now, Miracle Scott will introduce our next panelist for tonight.
I don't see Miracle just yet. She might be joining us. Ada Ruth, do you mind taking the lead?
Not at all. So I'll introduce our next panelist. I'm pleased to introduce Ms. Shirley Boulware. Ms. Boulware is a 1991 graduate of Auburn University with a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering with a pulp and paper option. She received her MBA from Auburn University at Montgomery in 1995. Ms. Boulware has held several engineering engineering, operations, management, leadership, and human resources positions in her career. She currently is a manufacturing recruiting manager for Georgia Pacific Corporation in Atlanta. At Auburn, Boulware is an active member of many organizations and boards, including the Auburn Pulp and Paper Foundation, the Engineering Alumni Council, Chemical Engineering Alumni Advisory Council, 100 Women Strong, Eagle Society, War Eagle Society, Foy Society, the Circle of Excellence Society, and the Auburn University Alumni Board of Directors. She is married to Brian Boulware, and they reside in Tyrone, Georgia, with their 2 children. Welcome, Ms. Boulware, if you want to wave to everybody in attendance tonight. Thank you so much. I now invite Tyler Ward to introduce our next panelist. So Tyler, the floor is yours.
Beautiful. So our next panelist, wait, maybe I should introduce myself. Good evening, guys. My name is Tyler Ward. I am a junior majoring in political science from Demopolis, Alabama. I serve as the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Chair for SGA Senate, as well as the Executive Vice President of Engagement for the Black Student Union. I am here to introduce Ms. Chacolby Burns-Johnson. Ms. Burns-Johnson graduated from Auburn University with a bachelor's degree in business administration in 2001. She received her master's degree in public administration from AUM in 2003. Ms. Burns-Johnson has held several fundraiser roles in her career. She currently serves as the major gifts officer for the Southern Poverty Law Center in Montgomery, Alabama. During her time at Auburn, Ms. Burns-Johnson was a member of the Lambda Sigma Honor Society, a Camp War Eagle counselor, PHC president, and Miss Auburn, the second Black woman to ever serve in this role. She is heavily involved in her community. She serves as the president-elect of the Central Alabama chapter of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, the Montgomery chapter of the Public Relations Council of Alabama Montgomery, a member of the Junior League of Montgomery, and a member of the Kappa Upsilon chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Ms. Burns-Johnson was recently selected as an inaugural member of the Black Alumni Council. Welcome, Ms. Burns-Johnson. As she waves, Jazzmin Sanders will now introduce our next panelist.
All righty, thank you for that, Tyler. Well, like Tyler said, my name is Jazzmin Sanders, and I am a senior majoring in industrial and systems engineering from Bessemer, Alabama. And I also serve as Black Student Union president, as well as an involved member of NESB, National Black Engineers, and a student ambassador for the Academic Excellence Program for Minority Engineers. And tonight I have the pleasure of introducing you all to Ronnie Brown. Mr. Brown graduated from Auburn University with a bachelor's degree in communications in 2004. One of Auburn's most storied football players, Brown was named Most Valuable Player of the 2003 Citrus Bowl and helped lead the Auburn Tigers to a 13-0 winning record. In 2004, he ran a total of 913 yards and scored 8 touchdowns on just 153 carries. Brown finished his Auburn career as the 7th all-time in rushing yards and 5th all-time in rushing touchdowns. The 2nd overall pick in the 2005 NFL Draft, the former Pro Bowl honoree gained over 7,000 yards and earned 40 touchdowns while playing for the Miami Dolphins, Philadelphia Eagles, San Diego Chargers, and Houston Texans. Since retiring from the NFL, Brown has worked as a sideline reporter for the Auburn Sports Network. He also was Auburn's selection for the 2018 AT&T SEC Football Legends class. And currently, Brown co-leads a wealth management practice that takes a holistic approach to financial advising and strategy. Please help me welcome Mr. Brown. All righty. And I also have the pleasure of introducing Ms. Jazzmin Carr, our next panelist. Jazzmin Carr graduated summa cum laude from Auburn University in 2015 with a bachelor's degree in English, literature, and sociology. She received her JD from Harvard Law School in 2018. Ms. Carr currently serves as Senior Incident Manager for Amazon. And in this role, she responds to and mitigates critically impactful global events, analyzes policies, and provides reports. During her time at Auburn, Ms. Carr was a National President Scholar, University Honor Scholar, top 5 Miss Auburn candidate, War Eagle Girl, Honors College Ambassador, members of the latest member of the Lady Society, the National Society of Collegiate Success, and Kappa Chi chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And she was recently selected as an inaugural member of Black Alumni Council. And I turn it over to Ronnie Isaac.
I'm going to pick up for Ronnie while he's still finding his way in. And I'll get to cover my mentors that was here, one of the greatest people I've ever met. So I'm pleased to introduce our final panelist, Julius Hammond, a former NPAC president and fellow brother of Omicron Kappa chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. Julius Hammond graduated from Auburn University in 2019 with a bachelor's degree in engineering. He is currently an industrial engineering associate for Lockheed Martin. And during his time as an Auburn student, Julius was the president of the National Panhellenic Council, a plainsman, and a member of the Alabama Power Academic Excellence Program. Julius also led the NPHC Legacy Plaza project, which is slated to be completed in 2022. The NPHC Legacy Plaza will recognize all non-fraternities and sororities at the National Panhellenic Council. Welcome, Julius Hammond. Now, I will go ahead and turn the program over to Ms. Regenia Sanders, our moderator.
All right, well, welcome everyone. We're super excited to have you here tonight. And I will say that on behalf of the Auburn University Alumni Association Board of Directors, I am extremely grateful that we have had such a great turnout this week so far. And tonight proves to be another great event. It is absolutely an honor to be here with you guys tonight and to join my fellow wonderful and illustrious alumni and engaged. So I'm going to go and not time and kick everything off and ask a few questions of the panel. That's going to be our format for tonight. And then we will open it up for questions from the audience, because I'm sure that all of you students have some burning questions that you want to ask our alumni. So I'm actually going to pose this question to every one of our panelists, because I think this is an important one for us to all hear from. So how did your student experience at Auburn shape who you are today, both personally and professionally? And I'd like to kick things off with Shirley.
So thanks, Regina. My time at Auburn was probably the best time of my life as a single adult. It allowed me to develop leadership skills. I found my voice. I got to pledge Delta Sigma Theta, Kappa Epsilon chapter. So I developed lifelong friends. I also gained the confidence to know that I belong in any setting, from the shop floor to the boardroom. So I discovered, just like in my classes at Auburn, I was just as intelligent. I worked harder than most of my counterparts, and so I belong. Auburn broadened my perspective that some things are given and some people have a leg up, while others can thrive on their determination and intellect. So Auburn, again, was the place where I truly grew up and became the adult and kind of the leader that I am today.
Thank you for that, Shirley. How about you, Ronnie? Let's hear from you on that one.
So for me, Auburn was first an opportunity. I think through sport, I was awarded the opportunity to, attend Auburn University, but more so than that, the reason that I showed up to Auburn University was, one, to get my degree. So I wanted to make sure that I did that beforehand, before I left. But outside of that, I learned who I was. I learned how to increase, my threshold in terms of what I wanted to accomplish. I think a lot of times we put mental parameters or mental blocks on ourselves, what we can accomplish, and not really know what we can overcome. And so it challenged me a lot, I think both mentally and physically, through sport and through, just growing into a young adult and trying to figure out who I was. Also, it was the foundation of my faith. Brother Chet, who was our chaplain at Auburn University, he ended up baptizing me before, I left Auburn University. And so I think that was really a catalyst to, me having success beyond Auburn University, because it laid the foundation for, what I would be experiencing when I left Auburn. And so through all of those things, it just helped me grow into a better person all around. Just talking, from a professional standpoint, all the way through, from a collegiate athlete to a professional athlete to someone who wanted to always strive to do more and know that the capabilities to do more and achieve more was always there. So I think that helped and aided in all of that, and just being able to see, a lot of individuals who had that same drive and motivation made me want to be better just in general. I think being around a college campus and you seeing a lot of individuals trying to better themselves, it encourages you to do the same thing.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Ronnie, for sharing that. How about you, Jazzmin?
Hi, everyone. I would say that Auburn definitely gave me an opportunity to find who I really was. When we are transitioning from high school space, your hometown, your family life, I was able to really grow into who I was going to become as a woman, find my own voice, find my identity, and really become connected to what I ultimately wanted to do as a career. I knew that I was really good at English, kind of had like sense of this might be something I'm interested in. I liked people, so I'm like, okay, sure, I'll do sociology. But being able to join Auburn's pre-law program really gave me the mentors and the access to really be able to figure out what my trajectory would be as far as going to graduate school, wanting to have a career that was robust and fulfilling. And Auburn definitely gave me the platform. They gave me the resources that I needed to be able to succeed. And they also gave me a network of people who genuinely supported me. They taught me the difference between having a mentor and someone who sponsors you, someone who will speak in front of you on your behalf and help open doors for you. It also taught me to look outside of my own identity and my own community, and being able to seek out people who might not have had the same experiences that I had, or might not have had the same look that I had, opportunities that I did, and they were still advocates for me. And so I think that that was really a part of the beauty of being at Auburn for me. As a woman born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi, it's a predominantly Black city, despite, kind of some of the misconceptions about what Mississippi's dynamic looked like. I went to an all-Black high school. I was surrounded by people who looked like me, people who spoke like me, and had a lot of the same ideas and perspectives about the world. And so being able to go into a setting that was pretty much the polar opposite for me definitely exposed me to the world in a new way, and helped me kind of see some of the different things that I would see professionally, and some of the different perspectives for the rest of people who just grew up different than I did. So I really appreciated and enjoyed my time at Auburn, personally, professionally, socially, spiritually. It just was a really great place for me.
That's great. And clearly it also prepared you for Harvard. So that's amazing.
Yes.
All right. So let's hear from Julius.
Auburn, for me, when I first decided to come to Auburn, I wanted to focus on just coming to school, doing my work, graduating in 3 years. But with my brother coming to Auburn, he kind of led me into that space to where saying, hey, you need to get outside the classroom and look to things outside the classroom. And Auburn, for me, gave me the opportunity to learn how to enjoy being around people, enjoy other people's experiences, and want to see somebody next to you be just as successful as you, or more so than you. And joining my fraternity, as well as being able to work on the projects I got to work on, join the organizations I got to be a part of, you got to see multiple people in various facets of life and see them be successful. And for me, that was my biggest joy at Auburn.
That's great. Thank you so much, Julius. And Chacolby, let's hear from you. I know you've got a good story.
Yeah, I would say for me, my student experience at Auburn just really helped shape me to be a well-rounded and balanced person. So it was a chance for me to participate, number one, in several organizations, but also to grow my leadership skills. So like others have mentioned, it allowed me to figure out what I really love to do, what I was good at, and also things that I just didn't like. So as a student, it was a chance for me to expand my knowledge, for me to grow academically, but also to explore life and just discover and find out my why. and found out who I am as a person. So being exposed to just different people and different ways of thinking, and then just the opportunity to develop my purpose and my passion, which is truly making a difference, giving back and helping others. I like to say I fully enjoyed my experience at Auburn. It was a blended experience of fun, fellowship, and of course a little football too. But in there was also some failures and some life lessons that I had to learn while there at the university. So while being there, I grew as a servant leader, but also just developed my organizational skills, multitasking, things that carry on until today when I'm looking at project management and time management. And then most importantly, just those lifelong friendships and networks that carry on until today. So Auburn really just taught me how to persevere, the importance of hard work, having empathy for others, dedication, and then also just an overall commitment to excellence. So overall, I would say personally and professionally, it just taught me through many things that I'm capable, competent, and I think most importantly, it helped build my confidence as a student and as a leader moving forward.
Thank you all so much for your answers. I think that you have basically embodied what all of us as alums feel. I mean, when I think about my own Auburn experience, it's a combination of everything you guys have said. I feel that I learned how to be who I really am intended to be. When I was in graduate school, I went what I call my crisis of belief, where I thought that I wanted to eventually do a PhD in engineering, and I ended up becoming a consultant, which is completely different from what I set out to do. But if it had not been for the experience that I had at Auburn, which all of you have so well articulated, along with the lifelong friends that I have made when I was in Auburn, I know that I really could not be where I am today. So it's amazing that we all have that shared experience. And you know, what I'd like to say is that I feel like every single one of us, irrespective of race or gender, we all have that commonality when it comes to our experience at Auburn. So it's just wonderful to hear your stories. So I'm going to move along to the next question. And I'm going to kick this one off to you, Ronnie, because I feel like perhaps being a student athlete, you might have had a slightly different experience. So I'd really like for you to talk about this. So here's the question. What advice do you have for current students, athletes and otherwise, particularly as it relates to being a Black person on a predominantly white campus?
You know, I think it's a little different. So growing up in high school, I went to school in Northwest Georgia and at Cartersville High School, which was a mixed school, but it was majority white. And so it's always been a familiar setting for me. I was the only Black guy on the baseball team. And so that was a familiar territory. And so when I got to Auburn, it didn't seem that way. The one reason, because I was insulated and isolated with football. And so it was a lot of, you know, Black guys on the football team. We were majority Black. And so even with that, my roommate, you know, Jason Campbell and all of us, I think we all share similar stories just in terms of upbringing. And so we tended to have that comfort zone, which was a lot different from the non-athlete experience, because you didn't have that safe haven. You know, when I first got to school, I pretty much had 40, 50 guys that, you know, were my brothers now. And so being able to have those relationships, I think that was a positive experience, made the transition a lot easier. Whereas, you know, if I were to be, you know, to have the experience of being a non-athlete, you don't have the luxuries of doing that. You may see, you know, a couple Black students here and there, but even with that, there's no relation. So even trying to get to know them is a little bit different. And so, you know, I think the biggest thing is, you know, being able to go outside of yourself, push yourself, and becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so always chasing and looking to increase, how can you improve? How can you get better? How can you be better? And I think at the end of the day, we all share the same goals. Once you get to a university or get to a college campus, 9 times out of 10, you're trying to figure out a way to better yourself as an individual. And so when you're looking at that, you know, you try not to get distracted by what's around you. And I think that's the thing that, you know, I learned most from sport was the valuable lessons, you know, about life in terms of, you know, overcoming adversity, dealing with adversity, dealing with the ups and or the highs and the lows of, you know, triumph and failure. And so, being able to do all of those things, I learned how to deal with that, one as an individual, but also being a part of a team. And I think that's the family aspect that, as non-athletes, you get a chance to, spend more family time, I think, because I was limited in, the time and the time that I could go home. And, I remember being in Auburn, I don't think I went home but maybe once for holidays. And so, I think there's a different element to that. And so being able to really embrace that, and stick to what you came to do, and get accomplished by not being distracted by a lot of the outside, temptations and things that, that can distract you on a college campus. And so really not worrying about any of those things. And I think that's the main thing about having that focus and being, a minority on a college campus, because, it is easy to get distracted and frustrated, I think, with the situation, because you're not in your comfort zone. And I think we see so many people that happens to, and, whether it's getting homesick or, not really finding the right group to fit in with, or I wouldn't say fit in, I would rather you not fit in, because we weren't meant to fit in either. So I think the big part is just believing in who you are. And I think we all express like the importance of finding yourself and really finding your voice and finding, what it is that you would like to accomplish in, in going to this university or to any university in that manner.
That's great. Thank you, Ronnie. Really appreciate that. So Jazzmin, I'm going to go to you next, because you mentioned in your introduction that you actually came from a majority Black high school, and would love to know what advice you have for current Auburn students who might have come from that same type of high school environment, and what your experience was like at Auburn.
Absolutely. I think that I would be naive to say that it was a smooth transition for me. Culturally, there are just a lot of different things that I had experienced back home in Mississippi than I did with my experience at Auburn. And so I just made sure that I stayed true to who I was, fought for the causes that I thought were important to me, people who looked like me, people who might not have even been at Auburn and were considered not only the minority at Auburn, but also in the state of Mississippi and Alabama, and who might have had experiences that I felt needed to be represented in classroom spaces and discussions and in conversations. Because being at not only Auburn, but also at Harvard, you're amongst people who are going to be leaders. They're going to effectuate policy, they're going to effectuate change. And I definitely wanted to always remain my authentic self in those spaces, so that I knew that people who looked like me, who had my experiences, would always be represented and have their voice and conversation in the room. I would say that I felt that it was really important for me to perform exceedingly well in classrooms discussions. I wanted to make sure that I not only represented myself well, but that I also represented other people who would come behind me, and making sure that they had the opportunities that I did. I was very fortunate to come in to Auburn at a time where national merit and national achievement scholars were being afforded full tuition, full cost room and board, like anything that you can kind of imagine that you would need as a college student was included in our packages. And I wanted to make sure that the investment seemed worth it when Auburn is extending that to national achievement scholars who are coming from Black and Brown communities, that we could perform well, that students who came from high schools that might not have been ranked in the top 1,000, even 5,000 high schools in the country could still go to Auburn and perform well. So I worked extremely hard. I even tried to make sure that I had come in with, AP credits, doing some kind of dual enrollment type thing, so that I knew that I would be able to handle my workload. And when I was able to do that, I even sought out my honors advisors, like, hey, I'm really passionate about English, but I also really love sociology. So I know I need 120 hours to do a double major, but I would love to have 2 degrees. So what does that look like? And they were able to set me on a path that I not only had the 120 hours that I needed to graduate doing a double major, but that in 4 years I could have the full 150 hours needed to have 2 separate degrees, whether that would be 2 bachelor's degrees or a bachelor's and a master's degree. And I just really sought out support systems. I had to quickly be able to learn to be relatable, learn to have those even sometimes awkward and uncomfortable conversations with friends about things that were not so, I guess, addressed on campus all the time. We needed to really make sure that, hey, like, that didn't make me comfortable, or I don't know if you kind of understand or perceive how that would make someone who looks like me, someone from my background, feel. And so in having those opportunities and having those spaces and creating those spaces and those moments, I was able to build lifelong friends and build lifelong relationships with people who I never would have imagined being some of my best friends. And you know, it's just really a unique experience for students when you go to a university where there's only 5, maybe, you know, in a good year, 10% of students from a background that's even similar to you in race. But we all know that Black people are so diverse, even within our own race, that there are people who are not going to have the same experiences that you do and have the same outlook on life that you do. And you just really have to be open and intentional about trying to create lifelong bonds and finding the support systems where you can.
Thank you so much, Jazzmin. And I see you nodding, Chacolby, so I'm going to go to you on that one before moving to the next question.
Yeah, to me, Auburn is just basically a mini America. And when I say that, Auburn basically is what it's going to look like when you go out into the workplace and also in communities. So me, I'm from Montgomery, and the high school that I went to was basically almost half and half when it came to race. So Auburn for me was still an adjustment, especially when it came to some of the classes and you were really the only person of color in your class. So that was sometimes a challenge, but at the same time, I also looked at that as an opportunity. And for me, being at Auburn, it was more than just getting a degree. It was also about getting education. So things that you learn in the classroom, but also things that you learn on campus. So the advice I would like to share is just one, to make sure that you're living inclusively. And what I mean by that is just get outside of your comfort zone. So this is a chance for you to expand your circle, learn new people. Basically, don't judge people just based off of the color of their skin, because everybody has a story. And this is a chance to make those connections, to break down barriers, but also to build bridges. This is a chance for you to create allies and support from people that you may end up working with or doing business with or creating partnerships with going ahead. So making sure that you're living inclusively. Also, I would give an advice for students of color is to make sure that you find your bond with other students of color. I mean, these are strong relationships that you should develop there on campus. This space is a chance for you to share your strengths, your struggles, but it's also a chance for you to celebrate each other. And as I mentioned before, build those lifelong bonds and also relationships. So this is a safe space. And this space also can become a place where you can use your collective voice in the event that there's something that you want to push forward or move forward there on campus. Also with this space, you're going to go through some challenging times in college. So I would say it's some of the best of times, but it also can be some of the worst of times, if that's with a breakup or a club or an organization that you didn't make, a grade that didn't turn out quite how you wanted to. I know I experienced 2 deaths in my family, ending friendships and relationships and financial burdens. So you just want to make sure that you have those people that you can share with when you're feeling on top of the world, but also the people that can be there for you when you're also feeling like you're defeated. Also, just being yourself. I think Ronnie may have mentioned, don't try to fit in. So be unapologetically and authentically yourself. So don't pretend to be something that you're not, because you have a story to tell. And really, that's gonna be your competitive advantage when you're out in the workplace and even on campus. So everyone has something that's special about them. So don't try to be somebody else, just truly be you and be yourself. And then the last thing is just really advice for you on campus now is just to speak up, speak out and stand up for what you truly believe in. So if it's something that you don't agree with, just don't talk about it. Get together, organize, strategize, and find a way that you can really make that change. So get into some good trouble, some necessary trouble when you have to, but just making sure that you don't just have a seat at the table, but that your voice is heard in a respectful way to move forward. So that would be the advice that I would like to share at this point.
Sage advice, Chacolby. Sage advice. That was wonderful. Shirley, before I move to the next question, did you have anything else that you wanted to chime in here on?
Thanks, Regina. I think Chacolby, her last comment was I was going to emphasize that for all the students, just know that you belong. I think far too long, African American students and alumni have made it comfortable for others to be okay that we're in the room and that we have a seat at the table. We don't need anyone to allow us. We deserve it. We've earned it. We're smart. And so we need to just own that. I think we need to recognize that being African American, our experiences, our background, our perspective, that's what makes us unique and allows us to succeed. And so, and that also brings creativity. It helps with better decision making, allows companies to be more innovative, and just improves the understanding and appreciation of our differences. So as I get older, I own that more and more. And so I just tell students to start off with that. And that's really, I truly believe that we're all different purposefully, and that we do the world a disservice if we don't bring our whole self to whatever we're part of and provide that enlightenment.
Thank you, Shirley. Really appreciate that. And that was actually a perfect segue, because now we're going to talk a little bit about career. So I'm going to kick this one off with Julius. So Julius, what suggestions do you have for students as they prepare for their chosen career? And in your answer, please include any recommendations for a job search strategy or any tips on how to be successful in the workplace.
So I'll start with the being successful in the workplace. For me, I think the biggest thing I learned from Auburn is being able to learn how to use the resources around you. And when I say resources, that means faculty, administration, the regular student, even with the Haven wants me to talk about, I'm sure, but the Legacy Plaza project, the way when I started that, my first resource was a lady. She was a Delta student who was in history major, and a lady I graduated high school with, and we ended up putting this packet together. And for me, that taught me, okay, you know, it's just not necessarily you don't have to do anything by yourself, but in whatever you do, there's always a good resource close by. You may not know it. You may have to, you know, do some searching and go around and know where to look. But if you just, you know, take your time, put your feet down on the ground and, you know, look, you'll be able to find what you need to find from the people around you. And I would say, you know, just being able to prepare yourself mentally, not going to bed at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning every night, making sure you're up before 6. And nobody in the workforce sleeps past 9. So I think, you know, being able to get your mind in that type of routine will help you find success in the workplace. The biggest challenges you'll probably be able to see is the same challenges you'll see at Auburn, not being or not having as many people in the room that look just like you, or, you know, having to, you know, make sure that your voice is heard, make sure that you know in your mind that you know what you're talking about, that you can speak to your experiences and show that you're eloquent and intelligent in your field of study. So that's what my answer to that question would be.
Thank you, Julius. Really appreciate that. So Shirley, I'm going to go to you on this one too, because in addition to being an engineer, I know that you've also held several HR roles during the course of your professional career. So what suggestions do you have for students as they prepare, and any recommendations you might have?
Thanks, Regina. This is a challenging time for everyone due to the COVID-19, the pandemic. And so companies are having to really think about not only how they bring talent, but if they bring talent. So the market's going to be changing. And so you've got to figure out how to stand out. You need to also make sure that you research the companies, that you truly believe that their purpose, their mission aligns with what you want to do. Because you need to go in and be able to explain not only why you're attracted to that company, but you also need to be able to internally say, I'm going to like working there. Things are changing so rapidly with the workforce that everything's becoming a lot more automated. You're probably, even before COVID, you were probably going to be exposed to video interviewing. And so there's AI technology that evaluates these interviews. The workforce is becoming more automated using robots, IoT technology. So that's driving the society. But even though we're becoming more automated and technology driven, the skills that you possess and are acquiring at Auburn, those problem solving, those soft skills, those process improvement, those ability to adapt and be flexible, those are the ones you need to be able to explain, because of technology, things are changing rapidly. And so workplaces are looking for people that can adapt and be flexible, because roles are going to change. And so we're uncertain about the future. And I think people in most companies are looking for someone that can articulate, how are you going to deal with all the changes that are happening, and making sure that you are a cultural fit. As far as, some tactical things I would do, research the company, make sure you can articulate succinctly why you would want to work for them, and then just practice, interviewing. There's tons of stuff on the internet that can help you with your interview questions. I know there's workshops that are being done on campus as far as helping with interviews. And I know alumni are out there and willing to help you. But those are probably the things I think and see as far as HR are considering nowadays, Regina.
Thank you, Shirley. I mean, everything that you said really hit it on the nail. Yesterday, I was on a panel for women in manufacturing, and one of the things that we were talking about is we're living in a digital age right now, so the types of skills that are needed are a bit different. But I think that Auburn definitely does a great job of preparing you for all of that. But the other thing that I thought was very interesting is that for the first time in history, we have more than 4 generations that are in the workforce at the same time. From traditionalists all the way down to post-millennials are in the workforce. So that makes for a very different dynamic when it comes to companies and what they're looking for. But companies are struggling in some ways to make themselves attractive for you guys, for the graduates. So to me, that speaks to being who you are, following your purpose, knowing what you want to do, and going forward. So thank you so much for that, Shirley. So Ronnie, I do want to point this question to you as well, because there might be some student athletes who are on the line. And I know that going into the NFL draft is completely different for your first career, but now in the career that you have now, I'm curious what advice you might have for some of the student athletes out there post their career as a professional athlete.
Yeah, I think the two, well, I guess the one thing that I would say on this topic is, one, finding your purpose and chasing it with an unrelentless passion. Because you got to understand there are going to be 2 no's that you're going to get. Is it N-O no or K-N-O-W? Is it something that I either don't K-N-O-W or they don't know K-N-O-W about me? And so how do I make myself valuable to this company and set myself apart? And so that's in anything, even with me in the football side of things. Prior to this, when I first got to Auburn, my freshman year, I came in thinking I was going to play. And then Rudy Johnson also came in from junior college. And so ended up redshirting. And so in my mind, I was just like, they just don't KNOW enough about me. And so I need to find out how I can be better as a person, as a player, and show my value to this team. And so, fortunately for myself, the next year, Cadillac, Carnell Williams came in. And so that was another challenge. And so I was just in my mind, it's like, they just still don't know enough about me. And so I'm going to figure out how to prove my worth and make sure that, I know my value first of all, and then I show that value to them. And so, I think as you enter the workforce, it's just, you got to figure that out. Is, okay, it may be NO, is this an NO, or you just don't KNOW about me, or I don't know enough about your company to really know what and understand, like Shirley said, about what you're looking for, for this position. And so, you got to find yourself, you got to find that education, that information to know that. And so to figure out, okay, I'm going to be different because the way that I'm going to chase this and the passion that I'm going to chase it with, because I believe in my purpose, it's two different things. And so just knowing that you have the ability, I think we were all built for greatness. You just have to understand that, and you chase that with that unrelentless passion. And if somebody does give you an NO, it may just be not right now, even with that. And so just trying to figure out, how do I go back to the drawing board? If this is something that I really want, I'm going to make sure you KNOW enough about me, or I'm going to show you something about me that somebody else isn't seeing. And so I think that's the biggest part in anything and everything that you do, is being the big differentiator, is, showing that you are you aren't like anyone else, and you don't possess the same talent. And so it may take more than one try. It may be the second or third try, but, at least keep that passion and believe in your purpose. And I think if you do that, you'll end up successful. And it may not be, that was the right place for you, but at the same time, you'll learn something in the process.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ronnie. So let me take a pause and see if we have any questions from the audience. So don't be shy. Please either ask your question, or if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can put it in the chat, and I'll be more than happy to ask it on your behalf.
I'll ask a question.
Okay, great. Thank you, Miracle.
I'm Miracle. I'm sorry about earlier. But my question for the panel is, just thinking about your Auburn experience, what's one thing that you wish you could have done differently?
I'll take that one. Hi, Miracle. So for me, I would say the one thing that I would probably go back and do would be to study abroad. And I say that because now looking back on it, that would have been the perfect opportunity for me to do it without having other obligations. It would have been a chance for me to learn a different culture, to practice my language skills, and then just to be exposed to other things and people, and just to get outside of my box. So really to actually learn, live, and work abroad. So that would be one of them.
So Chacolby stole my answer.
We should have went together, Shirley.
I'm just going to say,
let's go on a trip after COVID.
I'm just going to say, ditto, when Miracle, that question you posed, I was like, yeah, I wish I had went overseas when I was younger without the obligation, as Chacolby mentioned, just because experiencing another culture just broadens you and enlightens you, and it creates empathy and understanding. And it benefits you personally. And so I want my children, I'm encouraging them when they go to college to do that, because I think it's very important that you get the opportunity to do it.
I think for me, I wish I had to challenge myself more. When I got to Auburn and I was trying to figure out my major, I wanted to do something business related, and I just never really challenged myself because I was comfortable in that sporting in that sporting environment. And so I really didn't challenge myself. And so, I would encourage, you guys, yourself to challenge yourself, because it's not really anything that you lose. You either, I call them teachable moments. And so even when you don't achieve what you want to achieve, you learn something in the process about yourself or about the actual process that makes you better for the next time. So if I could go back, I would probably have done something more challenging in terms of major related. But it was just me being comfortable and not really pushing myself outside of those limits.
Very good. Thank you for that. So I have a question that just came through on the chat, and I'm going to direct this one to Jazzmin. What were some of the things you did in college to motivate yourself if you were feeling defeated or lacking the drive to keep going?
Absolutely. I would say that, for one, just being a woman of faith, my go-to was always primarily to pray about it, get recentered and what my purpose is, and talk to some of my friends, my spiritual advisors, my support system, my family, the people, the community that you make your family at Auburn, and get really convicted in why I was there and what my true calling and my true passion was. I remember a time, I think it was maybe my sophomore year of college, and I felt like I was doing everything right for a professor. He was an honors professor. I respected him, thought he was brilliant. I went above and beyond to go and get 100 on every test, 100 on every quiz. I went to the office hours. I felt like I had checked all of the boxes on the things that they tell you about what success would look like in building a relationship with a professor. And there was a pre-law program called the Trials Program. It was a partnership between Harvard Law School, NYU Law School, and the Advantage Testing Foundation, and I wanted to apply. He was the professor that I felt like I had built such a close relationship with, had great grades, was very vocal in class, always participated, and I needed a letter of recommendation from a professor. So I reached out to him, and he was like, yeah, come on, let's come to my office hours, let's talk about it, after I sent him all the requirements. And when I got to his office hours, he told me he wasn't gonna write my letter of recommendation. He didn't believe that I should go to this program. It wasn't necessarily about my capabilities long-term. He just felt that there were other things that I could be doing. There was a program that I wanted to go to for Florida State School of Law that he was more than happy to write my letter of recommendation for. And he told me that I should just go and, to one of the local firms. Even offered, he's like, there's some firms in Birmingham, there's some other ones in Auburn, you should just go and shadow someone. I think that this is a really, really far reach, even with your great grades. And, I just don't feel comfortable writing a letter of recommendation for something that, I feel like is really not attainable. So I was just like, whoa, that was not at all the dynamic that I thought that I was having the conversation was. I thought on this email thread, I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to tell him some more good things to just kind of sprinkle in on my letter of recommendation, make it look great. And so the program, I had looked at the statistics and how difficult it would be to get in. And I felt really down. I thought that I could go to someone who really believed in me, who saw my potential, who saw how hard I was working for this class, and that it would just be smooth sailing. I knew that the program would be statistically more difficult to get into than Harvard Law School or NYU School of Law themselves. So I'm like, yeah, I probably don't, have a real shot. But after speaking to my Auburn community, speaking to my family, praying about it, I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to apply anyway, because the most, as Ronnie was saying, that someone could tell me is a no or not right now. So what do I have to lose? I had nothing to lose in applying. And so I collected myself and I reached out to another professor. I knew them relatively well. I was performing well enough in their class. And it was a complete difference in the response that I had, the support that I received. And they really helped me find the trajectory of my life. And from that moment, I realized that not everyone is going to see the vision that you have for your life, your calling, your potential, the route that you see that may work for you. And it's just important to reach out to people who do. Reach out to someone else. Don't get defeated when you get a no from someone. Don't get defeated and feeling down or like that something is unattainable when you know in your heart that it is something that may be called on your life to do. And so when I reached out, I was actually connected by this professor to another professor. He was like, someone else has been speaking really highly of you. I think that they'll write you a letter as well. And so by the time I sent them my application, I not only had one letter of recommendation, but two letters of recommendations from the heads of both of my departments from the school. And it was such a blessing. I got into the program and not only did well in that program, they invited me back to come and teach. Me, who thought that I wasn't even going to get into the program to begin with, I got asked to come back and teach 3 years after that because I didn't let myself stay down. I didn't let someone else tell my story. I didn't let someone else dictate the way that I thought that my life was going to go. And so if you're feeling down, whether it's professionally, socially, academically, collect yourself. You are there for a reason. Every no that you have in your life is just redirecting you to a paved path of yes, where doors will open for you, where people are already waiting on you, where people know your name, where people are already accepting that they are called to help you on your journey. And when you have that mentality and when you understand that and when you are true to yourself, nothing can stop you. Nothing can stop you. So just don't dwell in them. Don't dwell in them. Do whatever types of self-care that you need. If you need to reach out to someone like me who's been through it, like I sincerely am always available to any of you as a resource. My husband is currently involved in HR as well. So if some people are kind of getting a little anxious about their grades and jobs, like just please let us know, because ultimately we've been through the same experience that you had. We know what it's like. We know what it's like to feel defeated and in a space where you don't necessarily know if you always have that same level of support. And it's easy to kind of wallow in those moments, and we'll help you get out of it. Because we're there, we've done it, and other people for generations have done it as well. And I'll tell you, like, it's just so many beautiful blessings that are waiting on the other side of any no and any defeat. And you just have to keep pushing to get there.
Thank you, Jazzmin. And I think this next question, in fact, I have 3 questions that are coming up. So I'm gonna get to all 3 of those, but this one is a very good derivative of what the motivational remarks you just made. And the question is, for any one of the panelists who'd like to take this one, how did you deal with feeling lonely during your freshman year, even though there were a lot of people around you? And I think that that's particularly applicable right now, since we're in this remote environment with COVID-19 and classes are largely remote. So could one of the panelists please take that one?
I can take that one. So when I first attended Auburn, I attended Auburn with a lot of students here on this call. But when I first attended Auburn in 2014, when I first came to campus, my first 3 months, I was sick as a dog because I wasn't even used to being around so many people. And I didn't even get involved until around my junior year on campus. And for me what kind of helped me get out of that slump was finding something I value, something I found importance in. And for me, it wasn't necessarily any specific organization, but it was going out and just doing community service, just going out, helping somebody's life, for the better, or helping somebody else's situation. And I went to BSU, and we had the huge on-campus community service day, and I was a part of that, and then doing that and then working with a few different organizations on just going out and just doing different community service events. And I wasn't doing it for any, recognition, let alone get writing down hours and taking these hours back to this organization and saying, here, I got my hours for this community service. But I was just doing it for the sake of, I needed something to help me keep my mind out of, just being in my books, because at that time I was just focused on, going to class, go home, study, be in my books. And for me, I didn't have any friends. I would go, as a matter of fact, I would go to Tuskegee to do intramural sports before I went to Auburn and tried doing them at Auburn with my cousin who was attending Tuskegee University at the time.
Okay. Thank you, Julius. Really appreciate that. And I hope that was some good advice from both Julius and Jazzmin for the person who asked that question. So here's another one. Are any of you panelists pursuing entrepreneurial activities? There's one thing to work for corporation, but are any of you planning to launch, or have you launched your own businesses? So who'd like to take that one?
So I'll take it, Regina. I'm not personally, but my husband is. He's an entrepreneur. He's been an entrepreneur since I've known him, really. I think my we got married, and I think a month before our oldest daughter was born, he was like, I want to start my own business. And I was like, okay, I'm pregnant, so I can't deal with that now. But being an entrepreneur, I think I watch him and it makes me proud, because it's similar to what Jazzmin was talking about, and I think Ronnie, you're betting on yourself. You're believing in your capabilities. And so if that's in your spirit, and whoever asked the question, then I say go for it. I just know for me, I'm not as risk kind of or adventurous as he, and so there's a balance. But I admire all entrepreneurs, because you're betting on yourself, you're believing in your abilities, you're passionate about what you're doing, but you also need to understand the business side of it, and you have to be okay with failure, with no's, with setbacks, but truly believing that you are kind of in control of your destiny, and that you're doing the things that you're in control. And he told me the reason why he has always been an entrepreneur is because he wants to build something, a legacy for our children, but he also wants to help other. He wants to be able to provide opportunities and kind of livelihoods for others. And so I admire that. And I think people that have that entrepreneur spirit are wonderful, and they should go for it.
Anybody else, any other panelists, entrepreneurs want to answer that one?
I want to add to that. So for me, that's something that I just stay tuned. I'll just say that. But definitely it's something about building, I guess, just generational wealth and how you can pass that on. So it's good to work for a corporation or an organization, but it's nothing like having your own and being able to make those decisions and those connections and being able to have the visions and the goals that you see for the organization. So in the past, I have done some independent consulting work. So I think at this point, it's potentially figuring out when and the right time to step out into that space. So I'll just say everything that I'm doing now is leading towards eventually being in that entrepreneurial space.
Okay, thank you. All right, the final question that I have from the chat before I ask the panel one more question. So you guys get ready, there's another question coming. And I think I can probably take this one. So this question, I think Shirley answered a lot of it, and Jazzmin chimed in on this one too, but with it becoming more difficult to join the workforce during a pandemic, how can students connect to alumni, Black alumni specifically, for resources and networking when looking to next steps after Auburn? So I'll answer that in the capacity of being part of the Alumni Association Board of Directors. So for those of you who don't know, this is the inaugural year of us launching a Black Alumni Council. Several of those inaugural members are actually on this call, and two of them are on this panel. So one of the directives, I'm pretty sure that this council is going to take on as their project during their inaugural year is to create more opportunities for our students to engage and to interact with our Black alums. So that's one thing, and that's coming. And I think too, just this forum, I know that it's a little odd since we're all remote, but I'm pretty sure that any of the alums who were on this call tonight would be more than happy to talk to you, to engage with you. I know that I sometimes get quite a few LinkedIn requests, and I'd ask you to just be patient with me, because if I see Auburn next to your name, I'm going to eventually accept you. I just don't check it very often, but I think that that's another vehicle as well. But know that the Alumni Association sees this as something that is a great need for our students to be better connected with alums, and alums are craving that opportunity to connect with students. So rest assured that there will be a lot more opportunities, but take advantage of this, take advantage of any clubs that you are a part of, and if they have alumni events, I would say please, please, please make sure that you take advantage of those types of forums. All right, so panelists, I'm going to give you one final question that I think is very appropriate. So given our current climate, both locally and nationally, being that this is an election year, being the fact that we've dealt with the aftermath of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. How would you advise Auburn students to be prepared for life beyond Auburn University? So Chacolby, I'm gonna start with you, Chacolby, on this one, because you actually kind of began to allude to some things around being active. So I'd love to hear what you have to say to the students on this one.
Yeah, I would say the first thing is just take a moment just to breathe and absorb the space that we're in and the time that we're all experiencing firsthand. I think we've all seen things, heard things, family has shared things. So I guess this is the fight of our generation and really a fight for humanity. So whatever that means to you, just live in that space for a minute and figure out what you want the world to look like for your children and your grandchildren. So what can you do to truly be the change that you want to see? So I would say to prepare yourself, moving beyond Auburn is your character, how you treat yourself, but also how you treat other people and just being respectful. So it's okay to have difficult conversations. It's actually healthy to have difficult conversations. And it's okay to have conflict, but you can agree to disagree in a favorable manner. That's the best way I'll put that. Also, just looking at your goals and your vision. So the road may not always be straight. I think someone already shared that. So sometimes you may get a no. So that no may mean not right now or not with them, but maybe it's a different organization or place that you need to move to get your agenda forward that you want to see moving ahead. Also, take some risk. I mean, everybody may have a little bit of fear. We're not supposed to have the spirit of fear, but if you do, still do it, but just do it afraid. I mean, I think there are many of us sometimes that are in situations where we still get nervous or we still get a little scared. So get comfortable with that because it may not go away. And then just knowing that everybody's not always going to be in your corner. 90% may be, but that 10% may not be. So focus on the 90%. So what can you do to move forward with the 90% that's actually going to be there with you to help you grow? Also, just the importance of just giving back to others and what are we learning? And then once you earn, what are you returning? So just giving back to future generations. And just pursuing, I would say, progress and not necessarily perfection. So what does progress actually look like to you? And then also just managing your self-care and your own personal mental health to avoid just burnout. So those would be the things that I would probably lead with at this point as we're looking forward at Life Beyond Auburn. So just sitting in those things and just doing more than required unless that's allowed.
It's great. Thank you, Chacolby. Ronnie, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think the thing is, one, I think someone mentioned it earlier that Auburn is pretty reflective of society, you know, and I think, you know, 9 times out of 10, we are the minority. And so just being bold in who you are as an individual and being able to stand on that and always having the being encouraged to speak up and speak out, you know, if that's how you feel. I think that was one of the things I wish, you know, like we were talking earlier, that I wish I would have done better, is just being more vocal or being, you know, more excited about who I was, you know, and I think a lot of times we feel, especially being in environments where we're not the majority, that we feel that we need to dim our light or, you know, who we are and, you know, temper down whether it's our personalities. And I think you have to be comfortable with who you are because at the end of the day, you know, if you try to fit in, you'll never be comfortable because you weren't meant to fit in. And so I think the biggest part is just knowing that, understanding that about yourself and being bold about who you are and, you know, believing in you and never settling. Never settle. I think that's the biggest thing, is just understanding you are here, you are in this environment because you are supposed to be here. You know, and anything worth doing, it's not supposed to be easy. You just have to have the will and the motivation to keep going. So I think if you, you know, possess those things and believe in yourself and have that confidence in self, you have the opportunity to be successful in whatever it is you look to obtain or look to achieve. And so really just being bold in who you are as an individual and being able to stand out and stand up and stand in front for what you really believe in.
Thank you, Ronnie. You got a hand clap on that one. I saw it come through on Zoom. Julius, I know you want to chime in on this one too.
Yeah, so for me, the way I look at it is we need to be able to control the things we know we can't control. And so in my mind, I always think of there's always institutional racism and then there's racism. Racism itself, that exists within people's heart. I can't control how somebody's heart, how they feel about me and what they think inherently about me because the way I look. I can have those one-on-one conversations with them and hopefully, you know, their heart will change, but that's something that they have to do by themselves. Institutional racism, though, that's me making sure that when I'm in these higher positions that I'm looking out and practicing equity and making sure people, marginalized groups, are being represented equally throughout whatever system I am over or whatever system I'm in, and making sure we're breaking down these larger systems and making more equitable spaces around us for marginalized groups. So that's why myself, when I focus on the term of racism, I focus on more so institutional racism than the actual racism that deals with the hearts of people.
That's good. That's good. Jazzmin, and then we'll go to Shirley.
I would say to, especially in this time when everyone is so emotionally drained, the socioeconomic problems that we're all facing, the injustice that we're seeing, to not just be busy in these moments, but to be fruitful. And what I mean by that is to be intentional about the causes that you care about and the changes that you want to make. When I speak to students, and even just graduating not too long ago as a graduate student, we had to understand the power of who we are, even as students. People, when we look at the wider world, the government, policies and politics, it can seem so distant, but it is so present in the moment. And you have such a power and a voice and a light that you can use from where you are. When I think about organizations such as like the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, those were students who were a part of leading the civil rights movement. They were a part of effectuating change, not only on their campuses, but they were a part of changing the world as we know it. And you can do that. It's just a matter of being intentional and mobilizing and creating a strategy. I had the honor of being a part of a class at Harvard that was a part of basically demanding and protesting to get the shield, the crest, the logo of Harvard Law School changed because it had ties to racism. The family whose crest that our law school had taken on as its logo was from the family of slaves who had built their wealth off of enslaved people and their labor. And that wasn't something that we found was okay. It was something that disturbed our spirits in that space, and we reclaimed that space. We wanted change. We made sure that we went and we talked with our professors, we talked with our deans, we talked with our alumni associations and everyone to really make Harvard have to address the issues that were going on its campus, not only from a symbolic perspective, but also a reality of it's a time of reckoning. So through our advocacy as students and as scholars, you're able to go in and really start creating some of the changes that you want to see. Everything isn't going to always be easy. It's not going to be a quick process. It's not going to be a smooth process, but it's one that's really worth the fight. So just make sure that when you are considering who you want to be, the type of voice that you want to have, the type of changes that you have, look to these examples of people who have been doing it for decades and decades of years to really make these schools what they look like. You know, we're here honoring ultimately Harold Franklin with this panel and the work that he did in being a trendsetter, a person who had a lot of courage to be able to go into a space where he was not only the minority, but by himself and not welcome. we're fortunate to go to Auburn at a time where it's at least a little bit more welcoming to us, receptive to some of our needs and concerns. So use that. Leverage what you have, leverage the voice that you have, leverage the resources and the people who care about you and your causes to really go in and make sure that you can change and leave Auburn a little better than what you found it. I think that in this era, self-care is also incredibly important. Black joy is a radical revolution in itself. So take time to find things that you are passionate about. If you believe in Black liberation, go and connect with organizations not only in Auburn, but outside of that, in the greater Opelika community, in Tuskegee. Get out into these other areas and find like-minded people so that you can also leave the greater Auburn community better, because there are so many people that when we graduate and we leave behind, we lose contact with, but their needs are just the same. There are Black and brown people who don't have the opportunity to go to Auburn, who are right there in the Auburn area. Go and uplift them. Go to church with them sometimes. Go and get involved in the local NAACP chapters. Go and make sure that you are a part of something that is larger than yourself, because if you are not just busy, but fruitful, you'll be far more fulfilled in the end. It's so easy to get involved in 20 to 30 different organizations that ultimately don't have the same amount of impact as when you're being authentic and true to yourself and helping someone else. So just make sure that you have a real, true look in the mirror and figuring out what that is. What legacy do I want to leave at Auburn? What legacy do I want to leave when I go to the next chapter of my life? What organizations and companies can I work for that believe in that same mission, that will support me to where that I can feel that I can vocalize some of my concerns, that I feel like I will be accepted and able to grow and thrive? And how can I just make a difference in those spaces as well?
Thank you, Jazzmin. And Shirley, we'll have you bring it home.
Thanks again. So as I think about Auburn students' life beyond Auburn, and I'll say it over and over again because to me that it's just this important. You belong. You belong at Auburn. You're going to belong in the workplace. And so be passionate and just embrace who you are. When there are things that you're uncertain about or you're unclear about, educate yourself. I mean, you're all highly intelligent. And then develop your talking points. Find organizations where you can get involved and exercise that passion. Use your voice. You can change the world. And I think as maybe Ronnie and Jazzmin and Julius have said, it doesn't mean it's going to be immediately, but keep doing it. Keep pursuing it over and over again. You're prepared, so walk with confidence, but also ask for help. Asking for help doesn't mean you don't belong or aren't qualified. It means you either recognize you want to learn from others, you respect their experience, and you're wise enough to know that others can contribute to finding a better solution. So one of the things I would also ask is seek out a mentor at work or someone to help you understand the norms, someone who one day may become a sponsor for you for higher level positions. Form connections and friends of all different backgrounds. But also, just focus on people with good energy that uplift you, that add to you and not subtract from you. So it's okay letting go of some relationships. There are going to be setbacks, there are going to be disappointments. Let that not define you as a failure. It's just the situation that failed. So become resilient, and then decide what you're going to do next. And then finally, remember to come back to Auburn and help others. Be engaged with your college, help recruit students, become a mentor. That fulfills you, and then you can help others succeed. And that's what I would share.
Well, thank you very much, Shirley. And before I close us out, I did have one other question come through, and I'll take this, but if there's other folks who want to do a quick chime in, please do so. So this is, what would you say is the most supportive and effective way to be an ally to people of color? And I love this question, and I really appreciate the person who asked it. I remember, I'm going to tell a little personal story. right after what happened with George Floyd in May, at our firm, I feel like we had a multitude of listening sessions. And being a Black leader in our firm, I was called to sit in on all those listening sessions. And they were great. It was open dialogue, and everyone, I think for the first time in the history of this country, people felt comfortable talking about their feelings. And there were a lot of light bulbs that went on in people's heads, understanding what the experience of other people that they had not even realized might be. But the one email that I received that impacted me the most was from one of the managers who works in my practice. He's a young white man from Florida, and he said to me in the email, "Regina, I don't know the right words to say, but I felt like I needed to reach out to you to let you know that I see you, I hear you. I can't imagine what you might be experiencing right now, as well as what some of my Black colleagues are experiencing right now. But I just wanted you to know that I am here and that I care and that I am going to be more active. I'm not going to be passive. I'm going to be more of an advocate verbally versus just in my head or just in my home for people of color." So what I would say, the best advice is to do just that. You might not have all the right words, but the fact that you are concerned about it and want to know how you can be an ally signifies to me that you actually are an ally. So what I'm saying is that be verbal and don't back down. Just like the advice that everybody is given to students here on this call tonight, be who you authentically are and do what's right for the people who are around you, because we are more alike than we are different. And it is extremely important for us to appeal to the humanism in every single one of us, because at the end of the day, irrespective of gender or race or beliefs or political affiliation, we are all humans and we should treat each other in that way. So anything else before I close us out? This has been an amazing panel tonight. All right. Well, I'm going to make a few closing remarks here. I want to say thank you so much to each one of the panelists tonight. We appreciate you for sharing your stories, for your honesty, for your transparency, for your authenticity, and for giving your time to our students. One of the reasons that I thought about doing this panel a few years ago is because I think that it's critically important for people to see people who look like them that are successful. And I think that, you know, this is a forum for which our students can see the amazing alumni that we have from this university and all that we have accomplished and all that you will accomplish. So thank you so much to the students for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be with us tonight. And I think there's one little announcement. Students, the Tiger Dining email to, the Tiger Dining will email you the Grubhub coupon in the coming days and will announce the winner of the Home Chef voucher. So with all that being said, thank you all so much. Have a good evening and War Eagle.